We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Mike Renner back in studio on 2-for-1 Drafts, the Wednesday episode of 2-for-1 Drafts, where we preview the NFL and college football slate. But before we do, going to Florida this week, see the family. When's the last time you saw your family?
Before COVID. I haven't seen them since. But
Man.
now
that you're immune.
Now that COVID, mutually the respect is there.
George and I were joking about that. We knew you would go with the OBJ line after getting COVID. Now it's just you're just not going to let it enter your body.
Yeah, I mean. It realized that it doesn't want to fuck with me at this point.
Jeez, look at you. All right, well, let's go ahead and look ahead to this rookie slate here. Give me your rookie you're watching or a rookie matchup you're watching this week.
I'm going to be watching Brian Burns, the edge defender for the Carolina Panthers. Now, he's not the rookie that I'm going to be watching, but he's been cooking of late.
Second-year player.
He's been one of the best breakout second-year players. I think pass rushing grade over 90, 10 pressures in the past 2 weeks. He's going up against Tristan Wirfs. Now, he didn't see a ton of them in the first matchup. He lined up more of a left tackle, but he's been going against right tackles of late, cooking those unathletic guys. But Wirfs has the athleticism to match them. Did well in the limited snaps they did face off in the first matchup. Wirfs, man, you can't say enough about how good this dude has been as a rookie. They kind of backed their way into the – actually, I don't know. The Bucs may have had him as OT1 all along, but they backed their way into him by being the team that got him, and they got the best rookie offensive tackle so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, Brian Burns, the second-year defensive end for the Carolina Panthers, 6'5", 250, has a 90.5 PFF pass rushing grade so far this year, 31 total pressures in 9 games. The dude has played really, really well, really taken a step forward.
And he's a unique test for any tackle, really, but the way he rushes the passer is not like a lot of guys in that he is pure speed, pure athleticism. He is about as bendy and twitchy as you'll see an edge rusher, but so Tristan Wirfs has handled guys like Cameron Jordan well, power guys, different edge rusher entirely. You're going to have to, it's not even like pass protected. It's a different skill set altogether when you go up against a guy like Brian Burns. So this will be a fun matchup to watch.
And Wirfs has only allowed, 4 pressures in the last, or 5 pressures in the last, 4 pressures in the last 4 games.
Do the math.
Sorry about that. 4 pressures in the last 4 games, 78.7 PFF pass blocking grade. His worst game so far this year, where I still feel like he played above expectation for a rookie offensive tackle, was going against Khalil Mack and the Chicago Bears, where he got that one play where he got thrown across and just absolutely embarrassed by Khalil Mack. But I do think that Tristan Wirfs has overall played really well. This is going to be a good test for him. I think another guy, while we're talking about second-year leaps, Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons for the Tennessee Titans looks very, very good. He was the guy that fell in the draft due to a pre-draft injury and some other off-field stuff from us that we won't get into.
Yeah, he beat up a chick in high school.
That I don't remember. I don't know the whole story, but it was not.
I saw the video.
Was it bad?
I mean, he punched it or kicked a girl, kicked a girl. It was in high school.
Yikes!
And it was not like a domestic violence incident. It was just like a street brawl. So.
My God. Anyway, he's played really well this year, too. Jeffrey Simmons and Brian Burns have both taken second-year leaps. We'll see how he does against Tristan Wirfs. I'm going to start with this. Brandon Ayuk, I didn't get a chance to see him go against Jair Alexander and the Green Bay Packers on Thursday night. He ends up being, a close contact with a false positive and Kendrick Bourne. I don't even know how that situation went.
They're just like, the receiving core just like...
Gone. Yeah. Absolutely gone. Kendrick Bourne tests positive for COVID-19. Brandon Ayuk ends up having to miss that game. Didn't get a chance to see him go against Jair Alexander. Now, going against the New Orleans Saints, Marshawn Lattimore, C.D. Deuce, Janoris Jenkins. I think this will be
all of a sudden a good defense.
Yeah, no. So my take on that, with the New Orleans Saints playing well against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defense specifically, is that they were in a really good game script. 16 minutes into that game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers punted 4 times in the first 16 minutes, and the Saints were 28-0.
They also forced them to punt 4 times.
No, I agree. They started hot.
This was a defense, the Saints, that on paper was much, much better than they'd been playing.
Yeah,
they have the talent to get it done there. I think their defensive line finally showed up to what we thought they'd be. David Onyemata had a monster game. Now he's going up against backup, but he had a monster game in that one. So I do think that this defense is better than they've played. That's closer to what I expected.
They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
But it's a good matchup for them. There's a lot of good talented corners there.
But before missing the San Francisco 49ers Week 9 matchup against the Green Bay Packers, Brandon Ayuk had what? 14 receptions in the past 2 weeks, over 200 receiving yards. Yeah, he was looking good. And I think going against the New Orleans Saints with other injuries along that offense, I think he's going to get the targets, the volume, and we're going to actually get to see him go against a legit. They are who we thought they were, New Orleans Saints defense. That's a matchup I'm looking forward to for sure.
All right, next one I'm looking forward to is Justin Herbert going up against that Dolphins cover 0. The all-out blitzes that they
Brian
throw
Flores,
at
I think,
you.
could eat Herbert alive.
Yeah, it's just saying, like, he cooked up a game plan for Jared Goff that made him look like a 12-year-old, like, out there in his first game of high school. Like, that was just absolute demolition.
12-year-olds aren't in high school.
Well, I mean, that's why. That's because they look like that. But I will say, like, the stuff they do in terms of just putting like 6-7 guys in line of scrimmage and backing out their DTs and rushing slot corners.
And
like,
having
it's
really
a lot.
good outside corners. That's another thing, too. You can't do what Brian Flores wants to do from an aggressiveness standpoint without Xavier Howard and Byron Jones.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to pat our backs about the coverage versus pass rush debate, but they have no pass rushers and they have the best defense in the NFL. Go figure.
Fair enough.
But this is going to be a good matchup for him. It could be, I mean, like we saw Joe Burrow in a similar matchup against the Baltimore Ravens just look like wet toilet paper. It just fell apart. Like, so we'll see.
I love these references.
We'll see how Justin Herbert does in this one.
Man, I'd rather look like a 12-year-old on my first day of high school. At least then I have like skipped grades and I'm brilliant, But wet toilet paper, that's awful. That is legitimately awful. So far this year, though, I want to talk about like Justin Herbert's lowest graded single game was when he randomly was given the start against Kansas City Chiefs, a 56.9 overall grade in that game. And he arguably played well compared to expectations. Mm-hmm. Since then, he's earned, 67.0 plus PFF grades in every single game he started. I think this one could be the next stinker for him. I think this one will be tough. I think Justin Herbert won't come out of this game with a 65.0 or even a 60.0 plus PFF grade. I think Brian Flores dials it up, makes him look like wet toilet paper in this one.
I will say I've been waiting to write about Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm. Maybe this is,
but they got to win first. I'm gonna start, they got to actually make a nice W before I write, good things about Justin Herbert, or else no one's going to want to read it.
No, you're not wrong. All right, my next matchup is Damian Lewis, who is, I think, the second highest graded rookie offensive lineman behind Michael Onwenu.
Yeah.
So far this year. And he had, coming off, we talked about it on the Monday episode, a really, really good game in Week 9. Now going against the Los Angeles Rams, meaning you're going to see Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers, maybe a little Greg Gaines action. But I hope we see a little Aaron Donald versus Damian Lewis, because my concern with Lewis, as well as he's done as a run blocker, and that's largely propping up his overall grade, his pass protection has been suspect against a handful of guys this year. Like, he has allowed some pressures. He has, had a lower pass blocking grade than he does have a run blocking grade. I think Aaron Donald is the Damian Lewis type's kryptonite in some ways, and that he's just a big, beefy dude that wants to go against bull rushers.
It's fucking Zach Martin's kryptonite.
True. So, no, that's fair. But I'm saying the type of rusher that Aaron Donald is, Kenny Clark is, Grady Jarrett, these guys that move really quickly off the snap. Damian Lewis is going to struggle. As big as that dude is, I think. I want to say this about Damian Lewis, too. We were talking about comps for Damian Lewis entering the draft. The more we watch this tape and the more we see him play in the NFL, I really do think the Gabe Jackson comp was the best one, because he's just a monster. He's a big, not fat, he's just a bulky, beefy dude in the middle that really struggles to get pushed back and makes people, pushes people in the dirt in the run game.
And that's the thing, is you don't, at guard, compared to tackle, you don't need to be the most fleet of foot to still be good in pass protection. If you can just not, because a lot of, far more pressures on the interior, a far higher percentage of pressures on the interior are bull rush, like guy collapsing the pocket. That matters. Like, having a pocket step up into is important. So losing quickly with speed, whatever, is not nearly as big a deal on the interior.
Yeah.
And so, but
I mean, that's why they call them phone booth guys.
Against
that's why
Aaron Donald,
it
is.
No, against Aaron Donald, you can get worked. And I think Damian Lewis could have one of his lowest graded games of the season, depending on the amount of reps that he sees against Aaron Donald this week. Your next matchup in the NFL.
I'm sick of the quarterback position. I kept it easy this week. And is Joe Burrow going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. that is another
Blitzburg.
Yeah, like
in Pittsburgh.
Like I said, the first time when they went up against Baltimore, wet toilet paper. That can't happen again. You need to see some advancement against defenses that are going to be throwing a ton at him. Now he's not going to have a great offensive line.
You know who needs some advancement against defenses that are going to throw a ton at him? Is Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor needs to step up in this game. Like the last time he went against a defense like Don Martindale, who blitzed a ton, it was atrocious. Like the offensive line and the offensive coordinator had never seen a blitz before. Gave Joe Burrow no opportunity.
This is true. But last game did not get sacked against Tennessee. So we shall see how he fares in this one. You had 2 weeks to prepare, so they better have something. This is everyone in Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh's not really a rivalry. People don't talk about that as a rivalry, but people in Cincinnati fucking hate Pittsburgh Steelers. There are fights every single year. There probably still will be, even with 5,000 fans at whatever game. There are fights every single year at this game because there's actual hatred between these two teams. It's not a fun rivalry.
Yeah.
There's
our producer Mike Quinn, who's a Cincinnati born and raised, a diehard Bengals fan. I think on game days against the Steelers, he hits 2 or 3 people on his way to work. With his car, with his fist. It doesn't really matter. He just wants to beat people up, and it's just not a good scene. Everyone's a little bit angrier on Steelers game day here in Cincinnati, which is an interesting one for sure. All right, my next matchup here is a little Ohio State on Ohio State action. We might see some Jeffrey Okudah, the Detroit Lions cornerback that has, like a lot of other rookie cornerbacks, not had the best start to his rookie season, going against Terry McLaurin, the second-year receiver that continues to dominate. And Kyle Allen out for the season. We're going to get Alex Smith. And I know he didn't look good late in that game. I think Alex Smith could be a decent option for this Washington football team.
He has to be better than Kyle Allen.
I think he can be better than Kyle Allen, and I think he can be better than Dwayne Haskins.
Also, okay, how much was Alex Smith? You saw Kyle Allen's leg snap in half right before you're about to go on the football field. Yeah. Was he just visibly shaking? How could you go out there and do that? You just had your life almost your leg almost amputated on the field, 2 years earlier through a very similar looking injury. Not obviously the same, but man, I couldn't have done that.
Dude, they showed that replay 2 or 3 too many times as well. The Kyle Allen replay.
Yeah.
Because it was a penalty. And they're showing, I think, who was it? I don't remember who it was, but swung his leg into his leg, and you see that thing just snap, and it was bad. Absolutely bad. Yeah.
That's not your ankle.
That's one of your least favorite things.
Way ankle sprains, I can't watch, man. I've sprained my ankle way too many times in my life to watch an ankle sprain. Every single time it sneaks up on me how much it hurts an ankle. Just a sprained ankle. I'll be maybe I'm just a huge wimp, but it hurts like a bitch. That's probably one of the worst pains I've ever felt. So,
like a sprained ankle, ain't nothing to play with, to quote that song that I don't even know. But either way, Jeffrey Okudah versus Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin has been really good in his second season. Everyone wants to talk DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. I'm telling you, Terry McLaurin is also, and I know he's older.
Quietly, he doesn't have the flash, but he's quietly just a very good route.
Very consistent. And, he's from a consistency standpoint, it's I don't even know who I'm trying to reference here, but I think Terry McLaurin, he's running a way more intermediate route tree as well. His average depth of target has dropped a bit, and I think they're getting him more involved than he did in different ways than they did the previous year. He's not just a deep threat, not just a vertical threat. McLaurin, man, big fan.
He's on pace for almost 1,400 yards.
Dude's a stud. With butt at QB, butt cheeks, and now Alex Smith, who is again, still trying to find his way back into the NFL. He's got comeback player of the year kind of locked up just for legitimately being on the football field, but still he didn't look good late in that game. I think he could have lead a better offense than Kyle Allen and Haskins did. I'm interested to see how it goes. Greenline bet of the week. So if you don't know what Greenline is, it's PFF's betting dashboard. We have it for the NFL and NCAA. Offers projections on spread, total, and the money line. Get your bets right. Get your bets right. You can subscribe to PFF Elite to get access to those betting dashboards. Speaking of which, what is your NFL Greenline pick of the week?
My pick of the week is, we touched on it a little bit, the Rams, Los Angeles Rams, 1.5 point favorites against Seahawks. Give me the Rams in that matchup. Give me the Rams. They won. Pete Carroll, even when they had good defenses, never stops Sean McVay. Sean McVay just goes to town on that Seahawks defense. And this one, I think, will be even worse. More so. This is the worst Seahawks defense, one of the worst defense in NFL history right now. So that being the case, and then Aaron Donald, they still are not nowhere near competent enough to deal with Aaron Donald offensively. And I think that's going to be a problem that always takes over those games. So I do think 2-game skid. Give me the Rams.
Man, projecting a 2-game skid for the Seattle Seahawks. That will be unfortunate. Right after the Pete Carroll extension, too. I'll say this. I think Andrew Siciliano tweeted this out. I'm sure you saw it as well. The Seattle Seahawks defense are on pace to allow the most passing yards in a single season ever by over 1,000 yards. They're on pace to break the record by over 1,000 yards. That's absurd.
It's like, wasn't it like opposing quarterback turns into better than Patrick Mahomes against them?
That's just insane. And you saw Jamal Adams getting into it, Pete Carroll on the sideline.
Well,
they have no pass rush whatsoever.
You tell me to go play man coverage against Stephon Diggs, I'll scream at my head coach. So, like, you hang me out to dry, bro. It's like, hey, go guard LeBron James one-on-one. Like, see what happens. I'm not going to give you any help. Okay.
My Greenline pick. Greenline sees some value on this one. I like it as well. The Minnesota Vikings going to Chicago as +2.5 favorites. At +2.5, that's not through a key number. I think I would rather take it on the money line there. You're probably getting more value. But I think I like the Vikings on the road. The Vikings look really good over the past few weeks. And as much as you want to fade like an offense that's predicated on just Dalvin Cook being an absolute monster, I think he's going to continue to be an absolute monster. And I still have no faith in the Chicago Bears offense. The quarterback position has not been volatile, has not been up and down for Nick Foles and / Mitch Trubisky. It's been just mediocre or not, or if not bad,
They're
every
just
single
riding
week.
I should have thought about this one before. What's the bottom of the wave called? They're still at the bottom. It's a long bottom of the wave.
I have no idea what the bottom. The rip? I don't know. I have no idea what the bottom of a wave is called.
The top of the wave is the crest. Trough. It's got to be the trough.
Interesting.
Isn't it the trough? They're in their 20-year trough. Chicago is good at quarterback.
Well, yeah, I'm taking the Vikings. I'm taking the Vikings as underdogs on the road against Chicago. Let's go ahead and pivot to the college
football. The Vikings are favored in this one.
I saw +2.5. I thought
they were favored by 2.5.
Let me see. Is that line moved? Let me make sure I'm getting the people what they need. Oh no, the Vikings are favored by 2.5. I like that even. I still like that though, because it's not through a key number.
He still likes it. Yeah.
It's not through a key number. I like the Vikings, but I wouldn't take the Vikings on the money line now. If they're -2.5, you might as well take the 3 value there and take them against the spread. Vikings -2.5 for Chicago. All right, let's jump to college prospects to watch. Who's your guy?
I have heard rumors that Rondale Moore is returning this week against Northwestern. Knock on wood. Praise God. Rondale's back. I can't wait to see him on the college football field. Now, Northwestern not going to be a great matchup. He's going up against a lot of guys who will never even touch an NFL football field. But just seeing Rondale Moore play football is a prospect I would like to watch.
You don't even like Rondale anymore. I'm going to tell you right now. You put Rashad Bateman over Rondale Moore in your first-round mock? Is that you predicting what teams do there? Or are you fading Moore? Are you fading Rondale?
I'm not fading Rondale Moore. Go look at the draft board, Austin. Go look at the draft board. Come back and see me. Can you go check the draft board and look up his position on the draft board right now?
I will.
Okay. No, right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the PFF draft board. And if you haven't checked that out, by the way, you can see it for free. You don't need to be a subscriber to check out PFF's draft board. Just Google PFF draft board. But if you are an Edge subscriber, you can see 3-year college football grades for every single player in the 2021, 2020, and I'm adding today 2019, 2018, and 2017 big boards. You can go back and see grades and analysis for even the previous classes, which will be a ton of fun. Looking at draft board, let's see where he's ranked. He's ranked 7th, right behind Jalen Waddle. And I guess that's fair. I just didn't like we had him in the mock draft.
Okay.
Given Rashad Bateman to Green Bay and not Rondale Moore. Either way, Jahan Dotson is the guy I'm looking at. And I know he's not on anyone's radar right now. Been at Penn State. Now, this is his 3rd season at Penn State. But when you do what he did to Shaun Wade, who a lot of people see as a first-round pick, against Ohio State a few weeks ago, 8 receptions from 12 targets for 144 and 3 touchdowns, and then follow that game up against Maryland, which I know is not as good as competition, but 9 receptions from 17 targets for 123 and 1 touchdown. This guy's seeing a higher target rate and target share than Pat Freiermuth, who a lot of people like in this tight end class. I think Dotson, I saw some shake from this kid. 5'11", 182, going against Shaun Wade in week 9. I haven't turned on the tape for Maryland yet, but the production's there. I want to watch more of him. The only reason I turned it on was to see Shaun Wade play, and now I might be turning on tape to see Dotson play.
Yeah, I mean, he is a breakout, one of the biggest breakouts in college football. It looks like he went from kind of afterthought on offense to, he's the focal point now. So,
yep. Who's your next guy?
My next guy is going to be another, God willing, Wisconsin's back playing football, hopefully. Kwity Paye, we've touched on, monster, week in, week out. I want to see him against Cole Van Lannon. We said Cole Van Lannon Chase Young single-handedly brought him back to school this year, said, no, you don't belong in the NFL, just torpedoed his draft stock. But he has had his flashes over the years. So Cole Van Lanen, the left tackle for Wisconsin, going up against Kwity Paye. And I'd like to see Wisconsin just play some football at this point. I was at one point a Wisconsin fan. Obviously, then went to Notre Dame. Not anymore, but still I still root for them. So I still hope for them to get blown out in the Big Ten championship by Ohio State.
Kwity Paye could have a similar performance that Chase Young did against Cole Van Lanen. Kwity Paye's been playing out of his mind. All right. My matchup is going to be J.C. Horn, who is, by the way, before I get into this, an arm, a leg, a torso better than Israel Mukuamu. He's the better cornerback. I think he's the better quarterback. I think he's more athletic, and he still has good size. As good as Mukuamu, as big as Mukuamu is. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of, I think, targeted as the better cornerback of the two going into this year. I think J.C. Horn is the better one. Him going against Elijah Moore, who mostly plays in the slot or has mostly played in the slot for Ole Miss, but they're putting him in outside now. I mean, he had some outside routes in this previous week. He ran some double moves and stuff like that. I think they're trying to get creative with him. His target share in that offense is absurd. They throw to him all the freaking time. If J.C. Horn can get some matchups on him and limit him, I think that'll be really impressive for his stock. So far this year, Horn, an 81.1 PFF coverage grade, 5 passes defensed, and 2 picks. I really like Horn. Joe Horn's son, by the way. If you don't know, it's Joe Horn's son.
It is. There's
Joe Horn is the guy. Joe Horn's probably a little bit before my time. I'm only 26 years old. Mm-hmm. But Joe Horn was the guy that pulled the cell phone out of his sock, right? That's how I know him.
It wasn't out of the sock. No. It was underneath.
Oh, that's right. No. Randy Moss pulled a Sharpie out of his sock.
T.O. pulled a Sharpie out of his sock.
Jesus, I'm going to go home. Can I go home?
You were young.
I was young.
I was also young, but I'm
going to look up Joe Horn's career while you give me your next matchup.
All right, my next matchup is going to be a wide receiver position. Amon-Ra St. Brown going up against Arizona, Lorenzo Burns, God willing again. Arizona plays football this week after not playing last week. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, 100 yards last week, but honestly, I wasn't like that impressed with him. He had some go balls on the outside, didn't haul in, had a couple drops. Not an excellent performance that he's now playing outside wide receiver there for USC. Going up against Lorenzo Burns, a 3-year starter for Arizona. Got some speed, but he hasn't been the stickiest of cover guys. So we shall see them go up against each other, hopefully.
I want to see more of Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've talked about it going into this year, that seeing more of him at outside receiver, which he's playing more of this year, is huge for his stock. And I think I watched that documentary again, the HBO one. I think it's called Game Plan or something like that. The St. Brown brothers one. Have you seen it?
No.
I bring it up all the time. Equanimeous St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then there's Osiris St. Brown is the other guy. So the documentary, which I encourage you all to check out, it's on HBO. We had a podcast listener reach out to me saying, where do I find it? And I found it and watched it again. Their dad puts them through the absolute ringer. They work out freaking 4 times a day. Their diet is cured by their mom.
They don't stretch.
They don't stretch because cheetahs don't stretch.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It is incredible. He said, hey, we have this floor of athleticism because your mom and me are dudes. We're legit, not dudes. Your mom and I are legit athletes, but we're going to take that floor and raise it significantly because I am going to put you in boot camp since you're 5. And all 3 of them are now playing. They're Power 5 offers. They all went to Power 5
Stanford. The Stanford one, I don't think he's going to play in the NFL. I think he's a senior now.
What the hell, man? What the hell?
And also, Equanimeous keeps getting hurt, so maybe they should stretch.
But yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Lorenzo Burns. My next one, it's simple. I watch Ohio State every single week. I don't care that they're 25-point favorites against Maryland, and I watch them because this roster is loaded with NFL talent, and I want to see more Chris Olave. Garrett Wilson's getting way too much love, and I know he's great. I know he's great. He's just not draft eligible. I want to see more Olave. I also want to see him more against single coverage, but there aren't going to be a lot of defenses that play single coverage concepts or a high percentage of them against Ohio State.
Yeah.
You'd be foolish to do it. But I want to see more Chris Olave. I want to see more Justin Fields. They're up there. I think they might be the best team in college football.
Okay.
Ohio State.
They're ranked 3rd for a reason because there's 2 better teams according to the polls.
You are high if you think Notre Dame is a better football team than Ohio State. I'm sorry.
It's a better football team. That might not be more talented, but
stop. You're insane. You're insane. Anyway, that's gonna do it for my Chris Olave pick. I did look up Joe Horn's numbers. His last 100 target season in the NFL at 33 years old, I was 9. So that explains why I didn't really get a lot of that stuff going. But here we are. All right, we're gonna close the show here and then jump to close the show with our NCAA Greenline picks and then jump to our interview with Chad Reuter, which very knowledgeable guy. That guy's been around the league for 10, 20 years.
Started with
he had in the background.
Started with the Mike Vick draft is when he started analyzing.
we were getting ready to start, and in the background, he's got Ohio State Rutgers on. Rewatching that tape after it was just an absolute bludgeoning. That's the type of film grinder we're talking to here in a couple minutes. But go ahead and give me your Greenline pick here.
My Greenline pick is going to be Ohio State. 25-point favorites against Maryland. Maryland's not good. I mean, I know they gave Minnesota a game. Even. Yeah, at that level. Maybe even worse, used toilet paper. But Maryland, so I was going through the top prospects every team in the Big Ten for an article. Maryland was the most difficult team to find. A legit, they do not have NFL prospects at this point. So this guy listed Chance Campbell, linebacker for Maryland. Good player. Not a great NFL prospect by any means. And I kind of wrote in the article, I'm like, like how bad that this roster is that his upside or his projection in the NFL is more than likely a special teamer. And I get a DM on Twitter 2 days later from a guy, last name Campbell. We'll just say his last name's Campbell, and it says, I think I have some information you might on a draft prospect that you might find interesting. And I'm just like, I'm not going to respond to that. I have open DMs, but they can't see that I've read them if I don't go and click in and respond. So I'm just like, I don't need this. I don't need these problems. And then all of a sudden it's just 230 pounds is not undersized. He runs a 4.6, and I'm just like, holy shit, guy. I still haven't responded. I'm not going to respond. Usually when agents or fathers of players reach out, I just kind of leave that be because there's no winning that game.
There is no winning. That's the thing. So I had someone ask me recently, I think it was on a radio hit. They said, how often do you get emails or DMs from players' parents at the collegiate level? And all the time. When I first started PFF, I was working in customer service.
Yeah.
You get in season 2 or 3, 4 a day from parents, siblings, girlfriends about their random player not grading well or whatever it may be. With Chance Campbell, 6'3", listed at 235, Mike. Runs a 4.6, asshole.
Yeah.
But so far this year, the biggest highlight here is only missed one tackle. Only missed one tackle so far this year.
I mean, he's a solid player. I'm not fucking hating on him. Call him an NFL prospect.
Dude,
getting called an NFL prospect is a good thing.
She just responded dude, you should be honored. Bro. He'll be lucky to weigh 225. Piece of shit. No, I don't know, but I feel like it's a losing battle. You try and approach them rationally. You know who?
Or even they get a lot of small school guys who are watch my film, and I'm like.
Anthony Tresh, who was on this podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
He runs into Liam Eichenberg's dad all the time in the gym, who I think lives out here in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And he said Liam Eichenberg's dad is the opposite. Liam Eichenberg will go up to Tresh all the time, say, how did he grade? He looked good, whatever. This a couple weeks ago or something, he said, he came up to me, he was like, I'm not even going to ask you how he graded. He played like shit. And his dad is just way into it. He's like, dude. So Liam Eichenberg's dad is a stud. It might not be Eichenberg's dad the more I say it. It's a different Notre Dame offensive lineman. It's Kramer. It's Kramer's dad. You're right. Tommy Kramer. Which Tommy Kramer is a dad name. So your dad is already going to be an elevated version of a dad. Yeah, Tommy Kramer is the most dad name. If you're going to cast a movie like Home Alone again, I feel like the dad's name in Home Alone might be Tommy Kramer. I don't know because it's such a dad name. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our.
Are you going to make your pick?
Oh, my pick. I suck. My pick is going to be Washington State +10. I like Washington State +10. I think the true freshman quarterback played well for them. Go Cougs last week. I don't know if you saw that game. It was a little Pac-12 after dark action.
Yeah, every Washington State QB, it's a pipeline at this point.
It is a pipeline at this point.
7
Gardner Minshew,
7th rounders. Can we talk about your boy Gardner? Because it's been a while since you brought him up on the pod.
Yeah, we can talk about my boy Gardner. Before, let me flesh out this Washington State take. They're going against Oregon at home +10. I think the Washington State quarterbacks played well enough. Right now, 74% of the tickets, 57% of the cash is on Oregon. I'm fading the market right now. I like Washington State at home +10. But yeah, Gardner Minshew wanted to play through that injury. Obviously, he's been playing through that injury for most of the season. And now they're putting him on the bench for Jake Luton, who here's the thing. Jake Luton has way better arm. His arm is just absurd, not absurdly good, but it's way better than what Gardner Minshew can put out. And the more we study this game, the more we watch and talk football, you realize that a lack of arm talent is very, very difficult to overcome in the NFL. Gardner Minshew can see the freaking future and still struggle with that arm.
Yeah,
because you can't run certain route concepts. You can't run. I mean, you have to keep in mind hash versus the boundary or field versus the boundary. You can't be throwing deep outs across the way. It's very difficult for Gardner Minshew to be good.
Yeah.
However, He has defied odds, Mike. 6th round pick, found ways to start. He's won football games for them they shouldn't have won. I still think he's a career backup in the NFL.
Luton's interesting, though. I thought he looked all right as a rookie. But like,
T-Bomb to Chark to start was kind of hot.
He's the guy who I thought he should have been getting the hype that – who was the FIU quarterback that I just like did not –
Oh, James Morgan.
James Morgan, who went 4th round. I thought they're like draft
to the Jets,
stocks.
Right?
Yeah. I thought they should have been flipped. Like Luton had just as good an arm. And I thought he played actually like a little better football at Oregon State. I don't know.
Well, James Morgan's a ginger,
so
right? I feel like that's kind of a red flag.
Is he?
I don't know, actually. Sam and Steve on the NFL podcast talk about
they have the ginger energy.
The ginger theory, where like there's only so much ginger talent in the NFL. So when like Andy Dalton gets concussed, it goes to Carson Wentz. He's a true ginger. It's trash. It's trash. Yeah. I can't believe I even mentioned it.
Yeah.
I'm a piece of shit for that. Either way, let's go ahead and jump to this Chad Reuter review. And I really like what this guy had to say. A lot of good stuff. We talked about the cornerback class, edge class, obviously the quarterback class in 2021. Also made a pun, a Tristan Wirfs pun. Guy's a legend. Let's get to it. Joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is none other than NFL.com's Chad Reuter, working remotely in Wisconsin. He's a Wisconsin guy. Mike, I don't know if you know that. Big Packers fan, Chad? Where are you at there?
Well, yeah, that's how I got interested in it. Watching Chester Markle and Harlan Huckleby and a bunch of the guys from the 1980s, back in the day. But nowadays I work for the league and stuff. My fandom's kind of tempered a little bit, and I don't root against anybody anymore.
Those were some lean Packers years, the 80s. I've heard. I was not alive back then, but it is a birthright, Austin. If you are from Wisconsin, you have to be a Packers fan.
It's a birthright. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it really was. And people who are under the age of 30 certainly don't know what it means to have been a Packer fan in the late 70s through the 80s. It was not great. I mean, they had some 8-8 years and stuff, but it wasn't great. But it was still fun.
Definitely encourage everyone to follow Chad Reuter on Twitter at Chad_Reuter, Reuter. He's been working with NFL.com for what, over a decade following the draft? How long have you been doing this, Chad?
I've been with the NFL media for about 10 years, maybe 9 years, something like that. And I've been following the draft for 20 years. My first draft was the Michael Vick, Drew Brees, a draft of 2001 that I really was paying close attention to and had my own website and stuff like that before working with CBS Sports and Sports Exchange for a few years and then going to the network.
All right, well, let's go ahead and look ahead to the 2021 NFL Draft. I know the season is still ongoing. People are looking at rookies, still watching a ton of tape, but I think this is shaping up to be one of the better quarterback classes we've seen in an NFL Draft for quite some time. I think there's rumors there could be 4-5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Twofold question for you, Chad. Where do you currently have the top 5 signal callers ranked, and how many do you think end up going in the first 32 picks?
Well, I think every year quarterbacks get pushed up a little bit, probably a little further than they should. And then the draft comes and they get pushed back down a little bit. Every year there's like a Will Greer or somebody like that. It says, oh, maybe he'll be a late first round pick. And then he goes 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. So I think we're seeing that a little bit with a couple of guys like Kyle Trask, for example, Florida. Probably a better 2nd round pick, something like that, in terms of not having, elite traits. And he's playing very well, like a guy like Greer did, for example, in West Virginia in his final year there. But I think it's really Lawrence and Fields at the top, with Zach Wilson from BYU in that mix as well in the first round. And then, you've got Trey Lance from North Dakota State, and for the 1 year he's on the field, he looked pretty good. And I think he's got enough tools that a team can work with him, even though he has a limited number of starts. And I think a team will take a chance on him in the first round. But he's, certainly very talented. And then you've got Trask and Mac Jones kind of fighting it out. And Mac's been great this year. I mean, he's been more. It's interesting. Trask is a tough runner. Mac Jones is a little more purely athletic, I think, in terms of a mobile guy who, you think of him as a pocket passer, and that's typically what he is. But he can move He can throw on the run. He can do a little bit of everything. So he's kind of a wild card as far as how high he's going to go.
I kind of want to ask you just about quarterback scouting in general and the theory of how long it takes you to feel comfortable about a guy at the top of the draft. Kind of last year, Joe Burrow, everyone had to see it for a little over half a season, I think, before teams or people in the media were really on board with him as the top quarterback in that draft. Mac Jones, I mean, elite through 6 games. Zach Wilson, elite through 8 games. How much more do you need to see to really feel confident about guys like that if they don't have, the monster traits like a Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah. Well, Wilson's really been, starter for a while. And it's not just, he kind of came off the radar this year a little bit, but there's some past tape on him to show that he's got some of this stuff that you like in a quarterback. And, Mac played a little bit last year as well. And he was an elite he was an elite recruit too. It's not as though he was a 2-star that kind of came up. So I think when you add together all that stuff, we're getting to the point now where we can say, yeah, this is pretty much what this guy is. And then, obviously when you work with NFL coaches, you improve in that. When you make that your full-time, everyday job, you're going to improve as well, for the most part, if you have those skills. So I think starting in the second half of the season, sort of like, we'll talk about NFL rookies as well, getting into the second half of their first season, some of them hit the wall and some of them continue to ascend. And I think you're going to see that with some of these prospects as well. Typically I'd want to see at least 2 years of film on a guy. But like for Trey Lance, for example, it's not going to be Mac Jones. If he decides to come out this year, it would be a little more than a year. But I think you pretty much know what you've got in terms of skill sets with those guys after a year plus.
I've been interested to see how much Zach Wilson's nickname has progressed as he's gotten better. It was Mormon Manziel. Some people are calling him Mormon Mahomes now. It's just as he gets better and he puts out better film, the nickname gets better as well. I want to pivot to the 2021 wide receiver class. And I think Mike and I have talked about this wide receiver class might be better than 2020. And a lot of people like the 2020 class. Jerry Jeudy, T. Higgins, etc., Henry Ruggs. But this class, Jamar Chase kind of leading the way right now. You also have Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Rashad Bateman. What's your opinion of this 2021 receiver class? Who are some of your favorites? And do you think it's actually better than 2020?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend, of course, about who decides to come out and who doesn't. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see whether the COVID situation forces more guys to come out or they really want to, get out of school and get paid. That could be the case. But if some of them end up staying back, maybe not as deep as last year. But if all the guys that could come out do, are at a similar pace as last year, for example, I think this class is better, top to bottom. And to me, you've got the top 3 of Chase, Waddle, and Devontae Smith. And those 3 I would take over last year's top 3, Ruggs, Jeudy, and Lamb. So at the top, it's a little better. Through the middle rounds, it's fairly similar, I think, to last year, and it might be a little deeper. I think there were 34 receivers picked last year. There could be more like 36, 37, et cetera. You've got guys like Jalen Darden from North Texas. You've got Jonathan Adams from Arkansas State. You got all these guys that are going to push themselves into the 3rd to 5th round area that are really talented. So I think this year's class could be a little bit better than last year's.
I want to kind of focus on the top here. And Jamar Chase obviously opted out of this season. Where would you rank him in terms of this year's class and last year's class? Is he the best prospect among that group?
Yes. I would say Chase is probably one of the top 10 in the past decade or something, maybe a little higher. He's not quite at that elite physical guy, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, all that stuff. But for a guy if he comes in at 6'1", 205 or something like that at the combine, he plays much bigger than that. I think he's going to be a fantastic pro.
How do you foresee the NFL dealing with those elite guys at the top who have opted out? The Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons. I'd even throw Caleb Farley kind of into that mix that everyone's seemingly high on coming into this year, but we're just not going to have tape on them.
Well, I think I saw you and Jordan Reed talking about this earlier, Mike, on Twitter a little bit with the edge class, which is going to be, I think, our next thing we wanted to talk about. And I think you look at a guy like Greg Rousseau from Miami, who I think is still the top edge in this draft. Kwity Paye has been great at Michigan, but I think when you look at the circumstances why guys were not playing this year, I really think teams have to just consider the circumstances. For example, Rousseau's mom was a nurse. His brother has asthma. There are reasons he didn't play that had nothing to do with just, I'm going to be the number one edge, so I'm not going to play. I think it's a little different even than like skipping a bowl, which I think teams are fine with, in general, as long as your coaches say you're a team player and all that stuff, you're just making a business decision. I think this is mostly going to be treated like a business decision, unless when the scouts and the general managers are talking to the scouting staff, they're like, well, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, unless they get some negative feedback that way. But I really think teams just have to go off talent. And again, some of these guys like Rousseau, so much of this process is projection anyway. If you've got just enough film against good players, you're going to project anyway where that guy's going to end up in 3 years. So you've got to do that either way. If he's a solid kid, athletically gifted, you can see hustle and effort on the film you have. I really don't think it's going to dissuade teams from picking these guys.
Before we jump to the edge class, and I also want to talk about the cornerback class, two very toolsy classes, because the guys at the top are really, really good athletes, have good size, good length, those things. I want to talk about Devontae Smith. You put him firmly in that top 3 at the wide receiver position in 2021. There are some concerns. You see people talk about his frame, going to show up at 185 pounds. Also don't see him as a top flight speed guy. How do you think he overcomes those concerns? Are you as concerned about his frame and maybe his top speed as others?
I think that's all garbage. I really do.
Let's go, Chad. I'm so glad you said that. I agree, man. Go ahead and expand.
He's fine speed wise. He's not huge, but he plays as tough as any other receiver in the country. And I wouldn't want to try to catch that dude, and nor would I want to try to tackle him, nor would I want to be blocked by him. He's an all around package, and he would have been at, probably 4th on my list last year. And he's certainly, in that conversation this year. And I think I wouldn't have any concerns about taking him whatsoever.
All right, let's go to the edge class, where you said you still have Gregory Rousseau as edge 1, even though Kwity Paye is dominating right now college football. How do you stack up the top of this class? Because there's, as we said, a lot of toolsy guys. You got Rousseau, Paye, Jason Owe from Penn State, now Azeez Ojulari in that mix as well from Georgia. How do you stack up? Probably the top 3 to 5 there.
Yeah, I think your word of toolsy is appropriate. I think there's a lot of guys that don't have a lot of proven production yet. And Owe, is kind of in that category. But you see the ability, and teams are going to take chances on these guys. Boogie Basham is kind of an interesting prospect, because I wouldn't say he's elite in terms of bend or, quicks, but in the NFL, sometimes these larger ends that can hold up against these tackles end up performing very well because they've got strength as well. You could look at a Le'Veon Chason, and he's tiny, he's got bend and all that stuff. But if you're getting blown off the ball, it's not going to help. So I think there's going to be a lot of good guys in this class. I don't know if there's going to be much greatness in this class. And I think you mentioned most of the guys. Then you've got, again, the later guys, the Patrick Jones from Pitt, Patrick Johnson from Tulane. I was going to mention somebody else, but Taron Jackson from Coastal Carolina. A bunch of those kind of guys are going to come in later, and they're going to contribute right away. So I don't know how much of a difference there's going to be between a 2nd round edge and a 5th round edge in this draft. I really don't.
It's definitely not the class for if you wanted that elite pass rusher in the top 10. I mean, after Gregory Rousseau, there is a little bit of a drop-off. Obviously, Kwity Paye there as well. But I definitely don't think it's a particularly deep class. Looking at cornerback, it's also an interesting conversation. There isn't like a true cornerback one just yet like there was with Jeffrey Okudah of Ohio State in 2020. Right now, Patrick Surtain of Alabama, Caleb Farley, Virginia Tech, even Tyson Campbell of Georgia are being talked about as the top corner in this class. Where do you see it shaking out right now in terms of at the cornerback position in 2021?
To me, it's Surtain all the way. I just think he is tough, competitive. He finds the ball, and I think more than anything else, I think that's really crucial at that position. And I think he's just so good at it. Obviously, his dad was a fantastic player, learned from one of the best to play the position. But I think he just finds the ball. He's a physical guy. He can run just fine. You got the size. I really think he's it. And I think there's a lot of other guys that are, again, like you said, have a lot of tools and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's interesting. The SEC is full of these guys that it's going to be fun to really evaluate. Marco Wilson from Florida, Tyson Campbell from Georgia, who's all over, guys. He's on you like a cheap suit, you know. It's really a lot of guys. Both of the guys from South Carolina, J.C. Horns played great this year. So there's a lot of SEC corners, and you're going to see some teams having to make decisions when they watch them athletically in testing to see, okay, what is really his best play? What kind of schemes can he play really? How can he really handle? Can he really handle taking on a slot receiver? It's going to be interesting to see how these guys kind of fit into that puzzle during the process. But to me, Surtain is the top guy.
Size and bloodlines at the cornerback class. You got J.C. Horn, right? Patrick Surtain, Asante Samuel Jr., who doesn't have the size, obviously, but bloodlines there. It's going to be a very interesting. Israel Mukuamu is like 7 feet tall, massive. Right. Tyson Campbell, super long arms. It's an interesting cornerback class for sure. Mike, go ahead.
All right, let's get to the NFL rookie class where the headline is the quarterbacks there. Tua looks good now in 2 starts. Herbert obviously looks good. Joe Burrow has looked good the past handful of starts after that Ravens game. How are you redrafting these guys if you got to do it right now?
I think I would probably still put them in the order I put them. The issue, of course, is Herbert's looked pretty darn good. The question is, if you put Tua with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, how does he look with that group, right? I mean, and this is nothing against Herbert at all. It's just a fact. And Tua's coming off injury still. I mean, November is when he went out, when he was stupidly kept in the game against Mississippi State. So he's still coming back from that. And you could tell in his first start, he was watching the rush a little bit, started doing that a little bit this week, but then he kind of got over that. And he's just started making plays and really just being himself. And I think he'll only get better the next couple of weeks. So for now, I'm going to say I would draft them in that same order. And we'll know probably about this time next year, where these guys' trajectories are really going.
So I have a theory about why all these rookies look good right out the gate, and that everyone thought it was going to be tough on this rookie quarterback class because the pandemic's limited offseason, no preseason. I think it's actually the easiest it's ever been on quarterbacks because there's no sound in away games. You're never having to do silent counts on the road, and so your blood pressure is never rising. You can stay calm pretty much throughout the whole game. You never get that sort of quicksand that rookies had a lot in years past.
I also think something that's helped them from a public perception standpoint is all 3 of them had very low expectations. Joe Burrow is playing behind a terrible offensive line, no offseason, no preseason. Tua Tagovailoa is not even starting. Justin Herbert not even starting, and also behind a bad offensive line. I think the expectations were low enough to where seeing them even slightly exceed expectations, and in Herbert's case, really putting on a highlight reel right now, I think that's helping public perception of all 3 of those guys as well.
Yeah, I think, interestingly, I wonder if, because teams didn't have as much time to prepare for this season, if the playbooks are a little thinner, especially when you have rookie quarterbacks. They may not be asking them to do as much as they would a veteran at some level. Now, again, like I mentioned, Herbert came into his offensive line isn't great, but he's got great guys to throw to. He's got some good running backs there too, especially before Exler got hurt. And Burrow, I mean, he has AJ Green, right? Tyler Boyd's been great. So these guys have a little bit of stuff to work with in addition to their own skills. And so I think having a little talent there, like you said, a little bit lower expectations, maybe a thinner play, but a lot of stuff helps them. And they're just talented. I mean, like between the last 3 years, this is the quarterbacks for the next 10 years, right? We're going to have another group this year that comes in, and this is really going to lead this league. And not only with the quarterbacks, but the receivers. We saw last year, Aaron Rodgers didn't have anybody to throw to. Tom Brady struggled, and usually Tom Brady can make these guys look good, right? But if you don't have receivers, even the best quarterbacks can struggle. So both the quarterbacks and the receivers coming in this year and the last couple of years are going to lift the overall play in the league.
Yeah, that DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin class is leading the way this past year with Jared Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and then obviously 2021 is going to be a monster as well. I want to close out with this and talk still in the NFL, talk about defensive rookies. I don't think there's a clear front runner for defensive rookie of the year. I think Patrick Queen maybe is the favorite because he's going to have those box score numbers. He's going to have those tackles, but Chase Young has also played well when healthy. Antoine Winfield Jr. has played really well for Tampa Bay in bursts. Where are you at right now with defensive rookie of the year? And who are some of your favorite rookies playing defense right now in the NFL?
Well, I'd go Winfield probably. If he stays healthy, some of the other guys might have some injury issues. I think he's just a football player, plain and simple. I think if his dad would have been a couple inches taller, he would have went even earlier in the draft than he did. And I'm certain that Junior would have went higher if he were a little taller. And, with the guys you mentioned, but some of the lower picked, well, not necessarily low pick guys, but like Jeremy Chin for Carolina has been good. It was great to see Ashton Davis last night for the Jets. Getting in there and making some plays as well. That was fun to see. Alton Robinson for Seattle. You're seeing flash plays out of him, and then that team needed more guys on the edge. So that was fun to see him making plays. Neville Gallimore, defensive tackle for Dallas, has started to actually get playing time, and now he's starting to make some plays for them. And so he's a lot of fun to watch. Michael Walker from Atlanta is really he's showing that he was a legit player out of Fresno too. It's fun to see these rookies really step up a little bit. And you know what? I have to talk about offensive linemen just for a second because I'm a fat dude and we must talk about offensive linemen just for a second, because you see guys like Damian Lewis from Seattle, who I loved watching him at LSU. He's going to be a really good pro for a long time. Owenu for the New England Patriots, he's playing all the different positions. He's just grown so much since his early in his Michigan career. It's watch that, and I think, although I'm not sure I would have made the trade that the Bucs did to get their right tackle of the future, but it really looks like Tristan was worth that 13th pick overall. So there's no way I'm doing a podcast without making a punt. So I had to throw one in there.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, though. I think Michael Onwenu shrunk from early in his Michigan career. He was like 400 pounds when he showed up to Michigan. He looks a little slighter than that now.
Michael Onwenu,
yes, exactly.
Losing weight was so big for him. And I feel like it really does speak to how the New England Patriots have really done a good job of developing offensive linemen. Isaiah Wynn, Michael Onwenu, even Yeldy Froholt of Arkansas is playing well for them in burst so far this year. It's Shaq Mason.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Froholt he looked good as a junior at Arkansas. He was not great as a senior, and so it's really good to see him kind of learning and stepping up. If only the Patriots could do that with receivers, draft receivers as well as they do some other things, they would even be more of a juggernaut.
Chad, always appreciate you coming on the podcast. We'll have to get you on again, maybe at the end of the season or closer to the NFL draft. Remember, everyone, follow Chad on Twitter, Chad Reuter, Chad_Reuter, Reuter. Chad, thanks again. Until next time, my friend.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.